Quantity versus quality, which path to choose, and is it important? Coming up on BTS Raw Chats.
This is BTS Raw Chats. BTS Raw Chats. Where real media creators chat after hours. We don't give away raw files. We give you the raw, behind-the-scenes chatter of the photo and video production world. The Raw Chat starts now.
Welcome everybody to BTS Raw Chats. If you don't know, we are real media creators talking about what really happens within the production industry. We want this show to help others out there learn how to deal with the day-to-day things that really happen behind the scenes. And joining me now, Sherry.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
What's going on? Are you excited about Spider-Man coming just around the corner?
Not really.
Well, today we're going to be talking about quantity versus quality, and is it important, and which path to choose. What path do you choose, Sherry?
Quality.
Ding.
I think you make sure I got that right. Definitely quality.
Definitely quality. Well, it depends is the real answer. What you're doing as far as like what you want to do.
That's a good point.
Quantity, obviously is how many videos can we get for this magical price? And then quality is like, I'm going to light this with soft lighting. I literally, no joke, probably 6 hours before we did this podcast, I was in a little bit of a high quality, shoot. And we were out there with 3 other guys. Here's the thing. Having 2 other people or 3 other people on set doesn't necessarily mean that it's a huge budget, thing. Normally, a normal cast, this is what we call a skeleton crew, But normally, you would have 7 or 8 people on a real production company, you know?
Would?
Yeah. Huh? Absolutely. But it's funny because the person that we were interviewing was almost a diva. He needed like 2 or 3 Snickers bars to control him. But here's the thing. We only had half a day. Mm-hmm. And we only had him for 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? Like weighing out.
Yeah.
So guess what? I did pre-production, storyboard, had a call sheet, had everything down to the wire. We got him out. Ladies and gentlemen, in 90 minutes.
Yay!
Yes. But my point is, if it wasn't for the pre-production and all that other stuff, I would have had a very angry customer. Yeah. But with that in mind, he was kind of like being a little diva in a way, and he was just kind of complaining, well, how many guys does it take to get, like this one video? Because he's used to quantity, where you have one camera that goes out there, possibly, maybe if he's lucky, has one softbox light, and possibly a lapel mic, and then that's video to that client.
Right.
But when you introduce crews and 2 cameras and lenses, lighting, all this other compiled crap to make a quality image, that's the difference. It's how do you want to project your company or your product or whatever you're trying to do, Do you want X amount of videos that look like trash, or do you want one video that delivers a quality message?
It depends on the company.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I know of a company that is okay with trash.
Yes. I think I know that similar company as well. It's funny that you should mention this, but like that one particular company doesn't really care about, quality, and would rather sell products that only sell the name without any footage or anything like that. And with that in mind, it all depends on how much are you willing to, well, not necessarily willing to spend, how much are you valuing what the message is that you're trying to get out there.
Right. And like you said, it definitely depends on whatever the project is, but I think there is a way to have some quality, at least decent quality. It may not be like your finest work, but also have quantity at the same time.
Right, exactly. Just the other day, I was sending you some links on pricing on video production, and that was one of the topics that was talked about was quantity over quality. And it really depends. That's why it's very difficult for a videographer or a video production company.
It just depends on your budget.
Exactly.
Long story short, got a nice high budget.
Exactly.
You're going to get a big, beautiful production.
Exactly. That's right. Going back to quantity over quality, it really depends on how much are you willing to value the message that you're trying to get out.
Right.
You know, could you work with the low budget and get quality image? Absolutely. We go back to pre-production. You know, the more prep you have on that end, the better the product is going to come out.
Right. That is true. Like that project that I've been working on for the school. Like I went in with very minimal equipment, but I knew what I was going to do beforehand, so I was able to like at least storyboard, and I kind of went in there and I knew like what I wanted to do for the most part. I mean, because things always happen not the way you write them down, so you have to improvise. But I mean, even with that, you know, it's not the best quality, but it looks nice and it serves the purpose and everybody's happy.
It's good enough for the amount of time that you had.
Right.
But if you had probably more time, you could have had that.
And more hands and, you know, like more help.
Absolutely. And help, you know. That the biggest thing that we got out of this last shoot that happened literally a couple hours ago was that he was out in 90 minutes. It's because of the extra help that I had. But if it was just me...
You'd probably still be there.
Absolutely. I probably would be dead. I probably would be like on my butt on the side of the road because like this guy is like, get him out of here, escort him out.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like he told me that it was going to take 2 hours. But we got the job done in a short amount of time. And I hope that he's happy, but he probably is not going to realize why he did that particular, time frame. You just got to educate, the customer or the client as to why, certain things take so long. The toughest part about our business is we're not a one-shot pony. Everything is going to be different. Naturally, everything is going. That's why we have bids on jobs, right? Let's talk about quantity. Was there any, was there any time that maybe quantity was somewhat of a good thing?
I have one.
Oh yeah.
It was a graphic design project. I had to make a flyer. Started out as a flyer, and then this flyer started out as quality because it was just one flyer. So like I put my all into this one flyer, had everything where I wanted. It looked beautiful. And then it started to turn into a quantity project. So this template was like revised over and over and over again to where this flyer was used, like I would say at least 20 different versions because they turned it into a template. So say it has like one title, we'll say brakes. And then that same template was used for injectors. And then that was used for, I don't know, name something, engine cylinder.
Right.
So then it kind of lost its quality because it just became like cookie cutter. And then it just turned into a big pile of shit.
Exactly.
That they're still using. And it looks even worse than when it first started out.
But again, it's what you project out there in the world. If you're okay with that type of quality,
right?
Quantity is a must for that company.
Right.
But like you said, certain things or whatever, what I'm saying, like you could wiggle will go by. If you have a template, then you attach the quantity to that template. So it all depends on what it is.
It just turned into a big mess.
Oh, absolutely.
And that would happen like all the time. But this one was like one that was really like used to death, and it just turned into like, it just looked horrible.
But again, it goes back to advising the client as to, but if the client doesn't want to hear anything, you know, you lost.
You're out.
Yeah, exactly. But it varies, right? It varies with quantity over quality.
That video shoot that you did for, well, not name him.
Yeah.
Beautiful, gorgeous. I mean, top of the line, high end, very high end.
Absolutely.
That's super quality.
But the reason for that was for the pre-production. I can't value enough about pre-production because it saves you so much money in the long run because you're not guessing what the next shot is going to be. There was a lot of stress. You know what I'm saying? Like I barely slept. And sometimes, I wear on to that. And once that shoot is over, I'm like, you know what I mean?
And then when you see the final product, you're like, that looks good.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm super happy with how it came out. And plus, the DP that was on the shoot with me and also the AC that was on the shoot with me, they were super happy for the quality that they had. And they were happy because they were doing creative things that they want to do within reason.
Right.
That wouldn't have happened if I didn't have the proper tools to do it, which is pre-production, which is a call sheet, which is a mood board, which is a storyboard, or you know what I'm saying, or a script. Definitely for sure a script.
Or your list of equipment, because you don't want to be there and be like, oh, damn it, I forgot.
Absolutely.
This cord.
Absolutely. Or this lens,
Yeah.
Because the shoot that we did was a 2-camera shoot, you know what I'm saying, wide and tight. And we did 2 separate projects in a half day. Okay, we had to do a 30-second commercial. I literally, no joke, we were outside of the facility. We had to do what I call a power shot or a cowboy shot, right? Had a couple slow-mo shots of the person walking and talking with somebody else, then transition over to a hallway shot where they slow with a slow motion shot of them walking down the hall and talking, and then guess what? I had my sound guy literally set up a voiceover box in another room, and then once I was done with the walk and talk, I transferred the person over to that other room, and then they did a 30-second voiceover, couple of takes. He was out the door, and then after that we were done with the commercial part and we focused on the interview, and after the interview he was done. 90 minutes.
That's like a well-oiled machine.
Absolutely. But if I didn't put the thought process through that, if I didn't do the location scouting of that, if I didn't do the storyboard, the mood board, all that stuff, we would have been, like you said, we would have still been there guessing on, what shot is next, you know? And we wouldn't express the flexibility of the creative because we were focusing on, we got to get him out of there, you know?
Right.
So,
whereas like, somebody else, who shall remain nameless, hey, last minute, hey, let's shoot this, promo real quick. And, the person is caught off guard because they don't know what they want them to say, and they're feeding them the lines.
And another thing is that, do you need a large crew? Absolutely not. You could do it yourself, or you could do it with yourself and somebody else, depending on what you're working with. But structure is what I can't push any more of.
Right.
Because if I didn't have that, I would have been in a crappy situation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So
you would have been.
Yeah. The crying. I don't even. It's like,
I'm like,
there it is. There it
crying.
is. Yes. Pre-production, very important. And I'll elaborate this after the break, but a little tip that Sherry had shared with me a while ago that I didn't even realize that changed my life.
What's that?
Well, you'll find out.
I know what. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
you'll find out after these messages.
Sherry Elisa Photography specializes in beautifully styled modern portrait photography, offering professional in-studio photography services to all of Southwest Florida. Push creativity to the next level. Create custom themes that will complement every personality and style. On-site professional hair and makeup is also available. Our studio is conveniently located off US 41 and Boy Scout Drive, next door to the Sam's Club Plaza. Book your spot now with SherryElisaPhotography.com.
And we are back, and we are talking about quantity versus quality. And I'm sorry for the little hook there, but I had to keep you on your toes because this piece of software literally is changing my life as we know it. Sherry, could you share what that particular piece of software is?
I'm going to assume that it's Milanote.
Oh, ding, ding, ding. Yeah, you got it correctly. Milanote has literally changed my life.
And I think I mentioned that in our very first podcast with the pre-production.
Yes, and it went, it went over my head, and I was like, Milanote, what the hell is that?
And then last week, you're like, hey, I found this really great software. It's called Milanote.
And then Sherry's like, you son of a bitch. I showed you that like the first episode, you know?
And now you're hooked.
Exactly. Now I'm hooked. By the way, we don't get paid for these people. We're not sponsored by Milanote. We're in the business. We are actually literally like living off of the business, and we are real media creators that are actually doing this. But Milanote literally changed my pre-production life.
That's amazing.
So like before I was using Microsoft Word or PowerPoint to
Evernote.
do storyboard or even Evernote.
Yeah.
And I still use Evernote. Just for documentation. Just I've been so used to it, and when you're used to something, here's the thing. You don't have to transition into every piece of software that comes out. I have edited on Final Cut 7 since Final Cut 5,
Yeah.
And I recently transitioned over to, not recently, this is years ago, into the Adobe ecosystem, the Adobe Creative Cloud ecosystem. And trust me, it has its kinks. But the ecosystem works with my workflow.
Right.
And since Final Cut 7 transitioned to Final Cut X, the interface has changed. So the reason for my transition was simple. The interface has changed. It's something totally different. And Premiere Pro was so much my workflow that I got used to that.
Right.
Now we want DaVinci Resolve.
I tried that out. It was okay, but I'm so used to. I've only worked with everything Adobe.
Again,
because they're all compatible, and it's to me it should be the standard, like what everybody uses.
And it is to some degree, but some people, DaVinci Resolve is the final editing software. It's
really not. No.
It's Avid. Avid was the original editing software. And since then, Final Cut came out and buried Avid in sales because it was the cheapest route, and it reached out to the independent filmmaker because at the time, we're talking about 95, 92, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Avid was the king. But Avid was $100,000 just to have a program software and a computer to run the edits.
I bet, yeah.
And I've my only experience with Avid, I never messed with Avid. I probably will never mess with Avid. And it's nothing against Avid. But it's expensive for what I could do with Premiere or with Final Cut at the time. And like, it all is in how comfortable are you with your programs.
Right, but also too, I mean, you're not just doing video editing. You're making graphics. You're using After Effects. You're rendering, transitions and intros and outros and whatever else you want to put in there. So the beauty of Adobe Creative Cloud is that they all work together. You can edit it in this and bring it back into that, and you can't do that if you're using Final Cut and then you're using all these other things that they don't work together.
Absolutely. The ecosystem for my workflow works.
Right.
Even if you're using your iPad, you know what I'm saying, to edit and, even edit photos or editing video now, it all depends on the comfort of the workflow that you're used to. It doesn't necessarily need to be like, I'm a brand person, Sony versus Canon.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like Blackmagic versus Canon.
I just feel like it keeps your workflows running smoothly, but it also keeps you organized because it stays within this nice, neat little family of software.
Absolutely.
So like if you venture out, it's like, hey, you don't fit into this family.
And guess what? With the workflow comes the quantity, because you could get work out a lot faster.
Right, exactly. Think about quantity. I always have to keep like quality. Like kind of get them mixed up. If you're using different programs that are not compatible, you just end up probably making a big mess out of your project because
absolutely,
it's all over the place.
Absolutely. So back to quantity. What are the benefits of quantity over quality?
That's a good question.
Boom, 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 boom. I could tell you one. Quantity. Obviously, there's more opportunity to upsell stuff because you have more of that particular product. Say, for example, social media. Social media is a prime example of quantity over quality. You have Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. TikTok doesn't necessarily yell out for soft boxes and, you know what I'm saying, HMI lights out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to light this dance-off video and we're going to have 2 million views. No, it's pumping out as much content as possible, quantity, and getting the message out there, whether it's like, if Leo was here, he would have been talking about possibly boobs, you know what I'm saying? Like
boob quality.
Yeah, boob quality.
Or quantity.
Yeah, for quantity, you know what I'm saying? Like scroll, you know?
What about quality over perfection? Because I actually read that somewhere recently in a job description.
I like that.
It was, you know how they tell you like the skills and like about the job, and it had quality over perfection. And I found that interesting. So I'm like, well, that's kind of... I guess you can still have quality, but you don't have to be a super perfectionist over it, which I know me and you struggle with because we like our stuff to be a certain way.
Well, the thing is,
at some point you have to...
The thing is that if you're a perfectionist, you'll never get it perfect.
Right.
You know? So you have to snip off the umbilical cord.
Right, like you have to cut it off at some point. Like, all right, that's good enough. It's good. It's fine. Stop touching it.
It's good enough. You hit the key word. It's good enough for that particular budget.
Right.
Because you could go all day, all night fixing up a video or a photo.
Right.
And then you're like, it's still not quite right.
Never 100% happy. There's always like that 5% that's
and you never will. You know, like all the top end directors, I'm sure, wish they would have had. If I would have spent $100,000 on this one shot. It's interesting, going back to high end production and quantity over quality, right? I forgot what the movie was, but they literally had a shot that cost the production company. This was literally a 30 to 40 second shot of an airplane landing on a runway in JFK. $800,000 for that one shot.
That is insane.
And the movie flopped.
Of course it did.
But again, we go back to,
Wow.
could quality, you know what I'm saying, like punch you in the face.
Right.
It can.
And I mean, honestly, for that, I mean, that was a real shot of like a plane landing at JFK.
Yeah, it was a
probably
real.
could just paid an animator to do it.
It's interesting that you say that. This was shot back in the early 90s.
Okay, maybe not.
Yeah, CGI. But back then they could have easily did a miniature.
It would have been like that
You know what I'm
cheesy,
saying? Like-
the cheesy fly-in.
Yeah.
Like you're awkward. Like,
But they could have done a miniature and pulled it off just fine.
that's true too. Yeah.
But they wanted a specific plane
Right.
at a specific time. I heard this and I was like blown away. But this plane shot was, they wanted the sun behind the behind the plane, this epic shot. They wanted the Empire State Building on camera right, and where they needed to position the lens was like they mapped out New York, and they had to find the position where the Empire State Building is going to be, and the sun. They had to film it at a particular date because the sun was going to be at that particular, you know what I'm saying, spot.
That is like so.
$800,000.
Like, could you imagine what it would be like to even be on that shoot?
Oh my God. 3 cameras actually, they had it on the shoot, and obviously they got the shot. But my point is that, sometimes, going back to your perfection, sometimes that can nip you in the butt, and this, it's good enough. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna make the story any more, you know what I'm saying, epic.
Right.
You
Like
know?
you have to know when to stop. Like,
Exactly.
okay.
Look at the type of audience that is watching these types of videos. They're not cinematographers.
Right.
They're not photographers. All they see is pretty pictures, and all they see is like, oh, cool. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right. Like they're not like, oh, look how they turned with that camera and it's so smooth, and like
absolutely.
they don't process that part.
Yeah. or they go back to, well, how come my photo doesn't show up like that? I've been fooled many a times when I was a kid, when they had like promo videos of like these camcorders, and they had this like high production, videos. I remember like when I got my first Sony High 8 camera, and they had this promo video of like, gorgeous shots of like, people smiling and all that stuff. And I'm like thinking like, yeah, this camera's gonna make this happen. And it's like home video cameras. It's like, I thought, I was.
You're like, how come my stuff
I was
doesn't
bamboozled.
look like the promo?
Bamboozled. Exactly. But it goes back to like, at the time, I was so naive that I didn't understand that. They probably shot that with another camera. They didn't necessarily shoot it with the High 8. You know what I'm saying?
They did it with the old switch and bait.
Yeah, piece of crap camcorder that.
Or it's the same thing with somebody who picks up the camera. Like they buy a camera. Remember how we talked about people don't actually take the time to learn how to use it.
Absolutely.
And they take these pictures.
Absolutely.
And they're like, well, how come my pictures look like this? I use this camera. How come it doesn't look like that?
Absolutely. And it goes back, because you don't have a Sony, because you don't have a Canon. You know what I'm saying?
Right? Or like you have the best camera ever made. How come your images look like shit?
Absolutely. Because you don't take the time to, really educate yourself.
Right. And again, it comes down to, it's not the equipment, although having, the better equipment, of course, if you know how to use it, it's going to make it that much even better. But you can't not know anything, buy that best camera, and expect great results.
Absolutely. So we go back to our 3 recommendations. The first is quality versus quantity on YouTube. Why quality matters by Nick. Second, quality versus quantity on YouTube. 3 tips from my friends, the video influencers. Number 3, quality versus quantity. How to make the most money on YouTube in 2021. Hopefully it's relevant for next year. So what's the point of the show?
I don't know, Dave. What is the point?
Quantity over quality. It doesn't matter the path, just the preparation. Hey! and with that was BTS Raw Chats. We'll see you next time.